Aha. I remembered to turn on the audio. Last week we did an entire show with, well, not an entire show. We got about a third of the way into a show with the audio switched off. And there we go. I've got the right camera settings for me set on here now. Okay, so you're back.
I am back.
So we're waiting for Jen to log on. Not 100% sure that she will, but we'll find out if she will. So in the meantime, I'm here with Elizabeth. And, I try real hard not to do the show before we do the show, but we're live and everyone can hear us and see us now. So the big news is that you're going to be taking over the Triangle Talk Show at some point. and I believe you're scared as hell about it.
I sure am.
Okay. And there's the kid.
Yeah.
So Elizabeth's feed will be interrupted periodically because of children, I think. So we'll just kind of expect that to happen. But yes, after the exhaustive search, we're going to have Elizabeth take over the show. Oh, did you like the special guest in the studio? That's been sitting here warming you up, but not warming himself up. The Bernie's everywhere craze brought him to the Triangle Talk Show studio. It was, sort of this shot, not quite this shot, but sort of this shot. And he just sat here quietly. Let me take his picture. And then he moved on. So let's see, somebody else is coming in, I think. Yeah, there's Jen. Yay.
Yep, I'm back. Couldn't miss the last show.
Outstanding. Let's see. Oh, I need to now that you're here, I need to adjust a few things. Hide that. Switch on the side by side and turn it to.
Can't miss the last show.
No, absolutely. Oh, is that working? Yep, the individual close-ups appear to be working. I'm just going to dump the countdown because we can get started. I actually have to leave early at about 5:30. About 5:30.
Okay.
Because
you will work within your constraints.
I'm going to go watch a football game with my friend Jeff. Jeff is...
Welcome to that post-podcast life
yeah.
where you have time to do things again and socialize.
Well, I'm actually sacrificing to do this show because the first game of the day is Green Bay. I forget who they're playing, but Green Bay is who I would like to see. But we'll go.
Where's
we'll
your
go.
Cheesehead?
Yeah, we'll go see. Whatever's left over.
Where is your cheesehead, Gary? Where's your cheesehead?
I'm not a Green Bay fan. I just rather watch a Green Bay a football game than whatever's coming on at 6:30. But whatever it is, it'll be fine. I am 98% going just to be with my friend Jeff. Jeff is he's been on the show before. In fact, he was on one of the very early shows. He's been on several times. He did my ham radio show a lot. He's a very bright guy. Very genius engineering type, very personable, very friendly. He was on this show talking about guns because he's a gun nut. But Jeff had surgery for brain cancer around Christmas time, and it's he's in doing the chemo and the radiation stuff right now, and it has knocked him back a couple of major pegs, and so I just like to be with him as much as I can. So that's the reason for bugging out early.
Sounds like a good friend and a good person to spend time with.
Yep. So, Jen, let's see. Can you tilt your camera down, or is there something below your camera line that you don't want to show?
Alas, I can do neither. It is no on both. I'm on a tablet, and the tablet this is as downish as it gets.
This is where the tablet goes. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. I mean, this matches everybody else's Zoom.
See, that's what happens when I try and tilt it down further. The stand just completely gives out.
Yeah. Matches what everybody else does on Zoom.
But I will try and sit up so that I'm not out of camera range. And no, there's nothing I'm trying to hide. I'm wearing my cool First Night Raleigh shirt from 1996.
That's an ancient. Was that the first year?
That was the first year, yeah.
First year of First Night.
I've done First Night every single year.
Except this year.
Well, every single year it's existed.
Did they do a virtual First Night?
I don't know. I was busy doing my own virtual New Year's on Zoom, so we counted down, and outside on the street, something was happening. There was a whole road crew digging a giant hole. So it sounded like fireworks, but it was really them blasting a hole in the road.
Okay. So, but if they do another First Night, then you'll be there.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
After the pandemic, with everybody vaccinated. I mean, I'm not trying to die just because it's New Year.
Yep. So after I carved Burning Out for the shot here in the studio, I decided, well, what the heck, I'll add a little bit more, and so I put him on Lincoln's lap.
Something I would do. I have been known to climb statuary and sit in their laps and pretend they're Santa and do a whole little just a bit of instantaneous performance art where I pretend that whoever's statue lap I've sat on is Santa, and people around think it's on purpose and it's performance art and it's justified, so they just take pictures.
So he
Have
I got
whoever it is of Georgetown University is very, very high up on a plinth, and I found somebody who worked out a lot to just manually lift me up as if I weighed nothing so that I could climb into his lap to do it.
Oh my
and
goodness.
It was during Parents' Weekend. There are probably ample photos in people's camera rolls of me sitting on his lap telling him I wanted a pony for Christmas.
You're wild and crazy. All right, I guess we can start the show. Shall I play the music?
Play the music.
One last
Play
time.
that funky music, white boy.
From the studio in the bonus room above the garage on the north side of Cary at the foot of Mount Belzoni, this is the Triangle Talk Show.
Let's cut the crap, kid. I want to know what the big talk's all about.
I don't think we should talk about this.
Then we talk all night.
Let's give them something to talk about. Another night of hearing myself talk.
Stop me if you've heard this one. Talk is cheap.
This is where we can dance.
With a little less talk and a lot more action.
You have great faith in my dancing capacity. It is
Let's tell it like it is
Oh, no.
and how it could be. How it was and of course how it
if we
should be.
could dance.
Go to mouth moving morning, noon, and
We
night.
could
We
dance
may
if we
dance if we could dance.
You know you're bound to drive me away.
Oh yes, this is how this works. Sitting sequestered in that studio, I am Gary Pierce.
And from my mom's house in Raleigh, nowhere near my usual mountain of Mount Okanichi, on the side of the hill with the chapel up top, I'm Jen, host of NannyCast.
And Elizabeth, you don't have a prepared introduction to yourself.
Oh no!
I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay, let me see. From the living room in my daughter's home, somewhere in Smithfield, North Carolina. I'm Elizabeth Crudup.
And I am calling you a pending podcaster. Because someday you're going to be taking over this here show.
Oh my gosh!
Yes, I finish it today. Tonight's the last time, but when you get up and running, kind of hard to tell. Oh, the show. Episode 131, January 24th, 2021. It's the end of the pod as we know it. It's not the end of the pod. It's the end of the pod as we know it. That's a REM song.
It's the end of the world as we know it.
Oh.
It's the end of the world as we know it. My mittens feel fine.
Yep. So yeah, my last show. It's so sentimental. Oh yes, best team of podcasters in North Carolina, maybe the Southeast. A claim I make completely without evidence, because who needs evidence anymore?
I don't know if you noticed, but on January 20th, we changed those rules.
We went back to proof.
Back to evidence-based.
And data. And evidence. And science.
And mittens. Mittens for everyone.
All right. So we will go dig up the evidence to prove that we are the best team of podcasters in North Carolina. Elizabeth, you get to put together your own team, and they will be the best.
I look forward.
I think there's part of the team right there. Yep.
Pink.
So let's see. We can
Anything involving pink is the best.
we can do the boilerplate for one last time. Jen, do you want to do the boilerplate?
Sure. The Triangle Talk Show is a podcast. That's the absolute best way to consume the program. There is, however, a video companion, and it is on YouTube Live, Facebook Live, and Twitter Live, because Periscope as a separate name is going away. But so long as it's still there, you can also find it on Periscope. But it's really a podcast. The video companion is just a companion. We talk about anything we want to. We aim more or less for things of interest to the people who live in the Triangle that Gary has termed triangularians. Sometimes it's local. Sometimes we go broader to the whole state or the nation. It is very much unfair and unbalanced. We lean left when we get political, which we always do.
I don't think Elizabeth is going to change that at all.
Nope.
Maybe.
Our website is triangletalkshow.com. The Facebook group can be found by searching for the words Triangle Talk Show. The YouTube channel is Triangle Talk Show, but just to be a little different, on Twitter and Twitter-related properties, we are at Talk Triangle. Podcast-wise, we're everywhere you can get your podcasts. Everywhere. Just everywhere.
There may be a place
if
where
you think about it and you go, are they there? The answer is yes. Apple Music, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, whatever your smart speaker is up to, it's all of it's everywhere.
I think there may be
because
yes. Go ahead.
Because they say it, we have to say it. Like us, review us, rate us, for whatever that does.
Because everybody else says that. Oh yes.
On with the show.
And really on with the show. Although we'll have to keep Elizabeth on the screen at some point to talk about that part of on with the show.
I'm in favor of her bringing all the pink children's toys onto the screen. I like pink.
I think they made
Well, that was a My Pony emergency. He needed to get a checkup.
Aha.
But here we are.
Pink Pony is never ill because Pink Pony is pink.
Oh my gosh. No, Unicorn is the one that has all immunity. Unicorn never gets sick, but Pink Pony sometimes needs help.
So Elizabeth, you've had a chance to sleep on the idea of doing a podcast, and you still want to do it.
I still do, because I realize at the end of the day, I want to hear from people, but I also talk too much. So this will be a continuation of the talking. There are a lot of conversations we have in public and in private that I hope that we'll be able to continue on to the podcast, and just in the same spirit of just giving, our what on earth opinions about whatever the current affair is of that day, whether it's political or, whatever it is we're talking about, just to be able to have different guests that people will enjoy to hear, and really just to hopefully do do you proud, Gary, because you have done something here that I really admire, and I've envied from the corner. And I said, I'll give it a hand and let's see what happens.
And you really have. We first met a couple years ago at an organizing meeting for the Women's March on Raleigh. And I had been doing this for not quite a year at that point. And I had mentioned to the group, well, I've got this little podcast going on. I was kind of hoping people would get interested in it. Nobody did except you. And your eyes lit up. Oh, podcast. I'm in for that. And so you were on, I think episode 43 was the the first one that you came on. I
remember that. Do you remember me calling you a conservative, boring?
I'm going to have to go play that back.
Oh my
Definitely
gosh!
trends to the more conservative side of the team.
Yes.
No,
Even when we had Sarah the Libertarian on, she was more progressive.
No, this is the thing. When Gary just whispered in the room, he just barely mentioned he had a podcast. But I also had heard that he had this background in broadcasting. So somewhere in my head, I was like, what? What did she just say? And I said, maybe the reason the other ladies didn't pick up on it is because Gary was letting us have our space. He wasn't trying to fill the room with his presence in any form. He was present, but he was very in the background. And I was like, did anyone else who were busy arguing about how we're going to get the word out, not arguing, but discussing how we're going to get the word out. I was like, did anyone just hear what he said? He has a podcast,
Could help a little bit.
And he laughed when I called him conservative. And I think that was the biggest presumption, the wrong misrepresentation of who Gary is. Like, no. No. I think after the first 10 minutes of the first show I was on, I was like, oh no, Gary's one of us. He thinks for himself.
I look like I could blend in at any Republican gathering.
Oh yeah. And
old white man, but
and I think that is, what do they call it? That was reverse prejudging, or whatever you want to call it. We all prejudged Gary just on the fact that he was white male in a room full of extremely liberal women, and we all prejudged him. And I'm glad, somewhere some synapse nerve connected, something connected in my head, and it pinged and it went, did you hear what he said?
Yeah.
We're here talking for 2 days about how we're going to do this. And ta-ra!
So I might not be as liberal as this old white man, but
getting through. And I think one of the other things I want to say we were really grateful for was the video you produced, the ad you produced for the Women's March. Was the last time we marched, and it was a rally march. Oh, that was awesome. That was really well done. I still look it over.
You were also the person who got excited about that, and you pulled it together. You were going to be on it, but then you found 3 other women to be the spokespeople on that ad, and they were all great. And
they were awesome. They were awesome, and that's what it was. It was a venue for everyone to have a participating position, to have a way to contribute to the organizing. It gave everyone a chance to offer their diverse talents in whatever area they were good at. And it worked out very well. It worked out very, very well. I really, really enjoyed that. I've always wondered, Gary, what your working day production skills were, what you did every day, because you're really good at what you do. You make it look so seamless, but I know it's not that easy.
Yeah, I do this 50% because I know the technology, and 50% because all of my career so far had been doing stuff behind the scenes and wanting to do something in front of the camera. And so, here I am in front of the camera, but the only camera that anybody would let me get in front of was my own. So it may be out of my system. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to do anything. If you want to invite me on the show again as a guest.
Oh, definitely. We'll come do a checkup. Come check on us.
Yeah.
Hopefully when we get this going and just come check on us. I know I will not be Gary Pierce. I'll try and be Elizabeth,
And you should.
That's what I had to determine. I had to determine, was I going to try and be the best replica of Gary I can be, or would it be more better if I just was Elizabeth?
Yeah.
And I think being Elizabeth would be a whole lot less. It's still going to be complicated, but a whole lot less complicated than being Gary.
It would be, and the technology of the show will reflect that, because you won't have all of this stuff that I've got around me to be able to do a multi-camera video show.
Oh yeah,
no one's going to
expect
dance.
That's a very elaborate dance you do right there.
Yeah, so you may just do audio, which is what we favor anyway, or there are some simple ways to do video where you can do it fairly simply. We're right here on Zoom where we're all together. You can push some buttons and make the Zoom video go out on YouTube or Facebook. I can't do both at once, but you could pick one. So you could do that.
I saw this thing, I guess there are all kinds of technologies to make everything work everywhere all at the same time. And I saw this thing that becomes a hub where you could broadcast to everybody simultaneously just by logging into the one app kind of thing. I haven't tested it, but I looked at it and I said, I need to figure out how this works, because they said they would broadcast simultaneously to both the YouTube and the Facebook, and I think Twitter, to 7 different things at the same time for podcasts, and also the audio. I think all I'd have to run separately maybe would be the audio podcasting, I think, but I'm not sure. I might be able to do it all through the one app. I think.
See, you're ahead of me, because I've never experimented with anything like that. So.
I was just I told you I had to figure this out. This is a big deal. This is a big deal to me. And I said I had to figure this out. I said there's got to be something out there. And this is what I told myself. I see many shows coming out of Africa, and they are both streaming on all the different avenues, all the Twitters, YouTube, Instagrams, all that at the same time. And I know many of them will not have the capability of running 2 or 3 computers. Like, how are they doing it? And one of them talked about this particular app. And I looked into it and I said, okay, let me see how this works. Like, I'd love to do like a test run on it first before I went on the live show, to see if it really does translate into a simultaneous broadcast just by using one app, log into the one app, and you pre-connect your accounts to it. So when you log into the one app, it sends live notices to all your channels, and then does the live show on all the channels. So I'm going to see how that works.
Excellent. I'm always fond of putting Jen on the spot on the show with things I haven't asked her about to do. But and I'll put both of you on the spot. I mean, Jen, there's no reason for Jen to stop unless Jen wants to stop.
I didn't expect you to yet. Otherwise, we're still going to hang out. And I think our perspectives are they're similar but diverse. I've seen that we arrive at the same conclusion, but coming from 2 totally different angles, observation. And I'd love to continue if Jen would like to.
That's the best way to figure out what the right answer is. If you can get there from multiple different angles, it's got to be the right answer, right?
Yep. Because mine is from my experience growing up in the savannah somewhere. So there'll be a lot of animals in my analogies, And most people go, I would not have put it that way, really. I would have, but it makes, eventually I'll get you there to the end. But it's also interesting to hear how someone else is seeing it. There's this, I do not know what it's called. I don't know if it's called the Kohario Johari experiment, something I saw in college where they hand you a picture and they ask everyone in the room, what did you see? And that's how I'm going to look at it. We will have an issue and we will have the what did you see conversation. Because maybe you saw something I didn't see and I saw something you didn't see. But do we come to the same conclusions by the different ways we looked at it? Do we agree it was, completely crazy, or do we agree, or do we disagree on how the intensity of the effect of whatever it is we're talking about, how much it affects day-to-day life or whatever it is, the environment. But that's one thing I think we don't talk about enough, really, is what's going on in our environment. It sounds like a boring topic, but when you start thinking about it, what are we doing to make sure we are either sustaining or improving our current environment? And what, for me, it's what local governments are doing. That's my newest issue right now, is what local governments are doing in terms of protecting the environment, because they are really the first line of defense. They're the ones who will either insist that we recycle or just say, bring everything to the dumpster and dump it there. Water use levels, et cetera, how clean our water is. They're our first line. Before we look at any federal laws or anything, our local government, they're our first lines. What is your local government doing in your area?
You're going to do so much better program than I've ever been able to do. I'm jealous. I'm jealous of your show and it hasn't been on yet.
Oh no. I'm just wondering, just getting people to stop and think a second.
Yep.
To stop and think a second, and hopefully we'll end up with a better week for everyone who tunes in.
Yeah. Now, you don't have to be live. You don't have to be on Sunday at 4:00. All those things just kind of fell in together. Live because I could figure out how, but nothing magic about that. Nothing magic about 4:00 on Sunday. Although then you get Jen, because she's carved this out.
I can make other times.
Yeah, we might talk about that, what other times, because usually I found out that Sunday afternoons my daughter tends to carve that out for call grandma emergency days. I'm like, this sound a little bit planned emergencies. They seem to be planned for Sunday afternoons.
Yeah.
But I love spending time with my one granddaughter. Vivid imagination. But I know definitely we might adjust the time where we come out, where we do the show. Even if I'd love to do live, but even if we pre-record and then share it out, that would be fine too.
Yeah, doing a live show and putting multiple people together on a show increases the difficulty exponentially. It increases the technical difficulty some, but it increases the logistics difficulty of getting everybody together in one place, because we're not CNN.
That's why showrunner is a paid profession.
Yeah. And plus we're not CNN. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, they call you, and unless you're Bernie Sanders, they get you.
Can I derail for a second?
Yeah.
Has anybody appreciated how CNN, since the inauguration, has basically said, they've had an anchor on who's been like, yep, things have been pretty peaceful and normal since the inauguration. Yep. So normal. So normal. I wonder what Trump's up to.
It's like they were so consumed by Trump. Trump was giving them enough to have an inferno of news for 4 years. They forgot where else to go look for news. It's like they forgot what else happens in this world.
I saw a news story about haggis in Scotland. I mean, they're relearning how to search for news stories. I'm telling you what.
Oh my gosh. No. If we're talking about haggis, no.
Can you imagine, somebody who became a producer straight out of college, they got their intern job and stuff 4 years ago?
Oh my, what would they be like? What else happens? Because all they've been doing is lining up the next Trump accident, the next Trump situation.
I mean, Kanye is still around, right? They can report on him.
The Kardashians.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm kind of looking forward to being bored by the news. Rachel Maddow.
I've heard this feeling that I have internal to me, and I can't put a name on it, or I couldn't put a name on it. I've heard it's been given a name by at least some psychologists as, and I quote, an aggressive sense of normalcy.
I like that. Rachel Maddow used to do segments on, especially Friday night, on formulas for mixing drinks, cocktails. She used to have show fans, people, just audience, come on and do a quiz on the week's news, and if they could answer some questions about things that were on the news during the course of the week, they would win some little tchotchke from her office or for the staff's office. And I miss that.
It'll be back
having
because
fun.
they need content.
Yep. So content for us has, just been scraped by whatever we encountered during the week.
Let's talk about how there wasn't anything that happened at the inauguration. Let's talk about that extinction spike. Let's talk about how I was relieved. Still, again, I was prepared for something, but it didn't happen, and I was so thrilled. I may have moles inside QAnon who just exist to lurk and take screenshots and turn things over to the FBI as necessary. And the amount of things that got posted on the QAnon's internal boards after noon passed on Inauguration Day and nothing big happened. There were a lot of people suddenly going, wait a minute, this has all been a big hoax, hasn't it? And then there were some other people who decided that certain things were deep fake. Like the inaugurations we were seeing on TV must have been a deep fake. Which for those listeners who don't know what a deep fake is, I believe it's Adobe technology, where they can literally fake a video and audio of anybody on screen given enough source material.
Yeah. You haven't been able to believe still pictures for a long time. For example, it looks a lot like he's here, doesn't it?
Yeah, you got the shadows right.
Yeah, I could fool you. I have some Photoshop skills, so a lot of the. Oh,
for those on the audio only podcast, he is now showing a Bernie meme, Bernie in his mittens, where Bernie is in the Triangle talk show studio, and he's got the shadows right. Bernie is sitting in his chair, in Gary's chair, and the shadows under Bernie's butt are right.
And I made those shadows. I created them. I created a little bit of a hint of a shadow underneath his arms because his arms are hunched up. They're not on the armrests, but I still put a little shadow under there. If you knew what the lighting was like here in the studio, you could tell that there shouldn't be a shadow on this side of his head because this pole is going up to one of the lights. There's another light off to the upper left-hand side. The shadow should technically be over here. And I'll, just to demonstrate, putting my picture up here and a little hint of shadowing over on this side of my face because the lights are all over there. So, but you wouldn't know. I think did a pretty good job. The edges are difficult, making the edges blend in so it looks like something is really there. That's, one of the hardest parts of this kind of fake photography. I didn't do anything to make it look like there was a depression in the chair.
That's okay. Bernie weighs like 97 pounds of nothing. He's like,
that's right. I was like, I don't think Bernie creates too many depressions.
Yeah. He didn't make much. So, okay. So,
But yes, that was QAnon's response, because apparently
I want to hear about your inside track to QAnon.
Oh, I mean, look, anything that happens on the internet, there are digital natives who can access those spaces, and not all digital natives are crazy right-wing, alt-right QAnon conspiracy believers. Some of them are, good people who feel like an eye needs to be kept on people, and who are aware, bless their hearts, that the NSA and the FBI, they do their best at trying to recruit people from DEF CON, but maybe they might not be the best positioned to know how to look at these things. So these people go and try and help out with their digital native skills.
Yeah, I guess I need sort of a definition of digital native.
Digital native are like, I was an early digital native. I grew up in a house where we had a computer by the time I was age 2. And the computer had one of those old handset modems where you put the handset of the telephone onto the box. And I could call up IBM, which is, around the corner because we're in the triangle. I could call up IBM and get into their system at age 2. So I grew up with a computer screen and a QWERTY keyboard and a modem. From age 2 on, my family was encouraging me to make use of these tools and see what I could do with them. And digital natives are people like me whose early formative memories are using tools with computers to figure out what's going on with computers, computing, and ultimately the internet and intranets, and how to infiltrate, not only hack systems, so not only infiltrate in a technical sense, but infiltrate in a social sense. Online gathering places, bulletin board systems, Usenet groups, and so on and so forth. When to lurk, how to fake that you belong there, how to get information out of other people.
So I was going to ask if it's a big overlap with the word hacker, and I guess there is, but it's not. But
as any hacker will tell you, the weakest point in most systems are the people. Mm-hmm. So social engineering is going to be your easiest way into a system, rather than just brute force hacking through the technical bit. If you can seduce somebody and get them to walk your corrupted flash drive in and plug it into their machine, it's worth any number of hours of trying to get in the back door on the internet.
So an inside job is always the best way.
Yeah, people are, and anybody who works in cybersecurity knows this. The people are the weakest link. And that's why they will send you fake emails just to test and see if you'll click the link. And then, all of a sudden you get called up and you're having a meeting and they're like, stop clicking links and spam. It's because they sent you the spam to see if you're dumb enough to click it on their system. People are always the weakest link. If we took people out of the equation, systems would be much, much more secure. They just would be. That said, that's a digital native. And the other thing I'm seeing my digital natives do is they're going on dating apps and they're writing these profiles designed to be honey traps for, your alt-right Nazis. And so that they try and swipe yes, I choose you on all the alt-right Nazis to get the alt-right Nazis to swipe yes, I choose you as well. And then they're like, you know what's super sexy to me, baby? Men who are willing to do insurrections like invade the Capitol. Tell me if you've got any pictures. I want to see them. And then these guys are sending him over and they're like, here's what I know about him. Here's his name, here's his address, here's a picture proof, like, go get him.
Oh my gosh! That the consummate fall.
Yes. So as I like to say, we're going to be all right. Society as a whole has figured out ways to just use our social capacity to keep an eye on some froggy behavior and take care of it when it gets into the realms of things that need intervention from authorities.
And I think Biden coming in kind of empowered the people who are in those positions to do that, because before I think they felt like in the previous administration, if they did that and they got the person's name, nothing would happen for their efforts. Nothing would happen to them. Now they really feel that, this person would actually get arrested and charged. We don't know about prosecuted because that falls into the, DA and all that, but at least arrested and charged, their efforts would pay off, as opposed to if they had called it out in the previous administration.
And I don't know whether it was their own nutso brains or whether it was some wonderful human who's really good at manipulating. But within QAnon, there was the idea that everybody just needed to sit still and the miraculous Q would do something at noon on Inauguration Day. So nobody needed to show up. Please don't show up. Please don't congregate. Please just stay home. I'll take it. I'll handle it. And that is a significant portion of why nothing happened, because Q said Q would handle it, and everybody believed Q. Unlike when, say, Jesus said he would handle sin, and people still show up and yell at you about that one.
So we've had this phrase. Goodness. We've had this phrase, peaceful transition of power. But as I observed last Wednesday, and I don't know if this will set a precedent for the future or not, I called it an armed transition of power. Which was sad.
What I saw. That's what I
saw. I saw a lot of bulletproof glass, and the children that I was with, I used the example of, I said paintballs and snowballs, but I was explaining why the people were behind bulletproof glass. I said it's to keep them from getting hit by anything, and the kids were like, hit by, and I was like, paintballs, snowballs, other things that can be projectiles, because they're young. They don't need to think about people getting shot in the face quite so soon.
Well, this is the thing. I wish the Biden inauguration committee believed in America enough to have let the people come through. I think security has been tight at all inaugurations. The Obama inauguration was one of the most scary ones, because if someone was going to get shot, that's the one we all knew was going to be taken out. But they were able to host a good and safe and well-attended inauguration.
Massive.
Yeah. So I wish that the Biden inauguration committee believed in the people enough, in America enough.
If they had done that, and if anything had happened, they would have been so screwed. Because they were
What if they did that and nothing happened?
Well, that would be good, but you couldn't.
I think they threaded the needle with the pandemic.
Yeah, pandemic, and the fact that there was armed insurrectionists inside the Capitol a week before. You had to react to that.
I think it was more of a sad state on America than on Biden's inaugural team.
Yeah.
I got it as chiding us. They were saying, "Hey, we don't trust you with evidence," and I figure that for the next inauguration, it'll be a looser.
I'm going to hope and pray that the majority of America, we saw how many people voted on the Trump side. I'm going to hope that the majority of America has a level head. Of course, there are kooks on each side, but the majority of America want that American dream, want that peace, want that prosperity, want that democracy, that discussion and disagreement, and at the end of the day, let's move forward kind of attitude. It may be a utopian thought, but America has been at peace for many, many years. America is, we've had unrests in most of the European countries, Asian countries, many, many, many African countries, multiple times, some of them. America has really held down on the peace side, and many people escaped here coming from those war-torn situations, and they truly understand, they truly understand what it means to be at war.
Yeah, you're right.
My goodness. I have a ghost on my TV. It just came on. There you go. It just by itself, just poofed.
Welcome to technology.
Yeah, just saying, I'm like, Q did that. Is this Q listening in? But no, but definitely. American people came here and they know what war is. They know what living every day, where, crossing the street to get milk, some sniper will take you out, something like that. So they came to America for peace, and I think most people want peace here in America, and I hope we do not over-militarize ourselves. There's militarizing, and then there's stopping the citizens from living their everyday life. Have your military presence, but please go ahead with life. Trust that the military will protect you, and go ahead with your everyday life. That's what I don't want to see lost, is whatever everyday life is in the time of COVID, whatever that new definition of everyday life. I don't want to see it curtailed and with more, you'll see more military on the street than you'd see civilians, because many nations have fallen into that pitfall, saying we're keeping you safe, but then, it just becomes a military exercise.
I've seen sort of a compromise, or a halfway between a lot of military and what we've seen here, which is almost never, almost none. In some recent travels to Europe, and I've only had recent travels to Europe because I haven't been a big world traveler for a long time. And Jen, you've been in Europe quite a bit.
Oh yes, about 40 years of it.
Not unusual to be walking around any place in a medium to large city and see military uniformed people with automatic weapons.
Oh yeah,
in twos
land
and fours.
Land at Heathrow in London, and you're met by an AR-15 being toted by I don't know which branch of the who knows what, but it doesn't matter. That's an automatic weapon. Yeah. It's right there.
And I saw them in. I don't know that I saw them so much in Holland and Netherlands. Certainly saw them in France and in Germany, and in even Switzerland, in Austria, Czech Republic. It was not surprising to see them. It was a little off-putting as an American, not used to seeing that sort of thing. But it wasn't.
You have to really trust they don't have an itchy trigger finger.
It wasn't an overwhelming presence. They were there, just walking amongst the people.
That's what I say. That's what I hope we transition to, not our end it all. We know we're going to need to have increased military presence. It cannot be increased police presence, because our police system is terrible, horrible, horrible, horrible. And I keep saying it takes, a lawyer, years of education. And the reason they tell you need a lawyer is because they say you can't understand the law unless you've gone through those years of education, to be licensed. But a police officer who is supposed to understand those same laws, they don't have, nearly as much education. You might be lucky if you find a bachelor's degree among them, And I'm like, so you're telling me this person with his associates or whatever in criminal justice has the same grasp of the law as this person here who is sitting as a judge, because they are accusing you under that same umbrella, but they're supposed to be able to understand it fully and understand the gravity of the charge that they're, appointing into your life.
And
but
react.
If you take the lawyers to discuss, and I've never understood that paradigm.
Yeah, the police officer has to not only understand all that, but react in a moment, maybe in a flash.
Oh yeah. So he has to have an extremely, almost robotic recall of what law is about to be broken or what law he's about to act under over here. And I've never understood that. That's why I'm like, no, I think I'd rather have the military out there. They go through a little bit more, preparation, than to have people who saw this as an easy way to go and take lives, Yes, they're good. They're good police officers, but there's some, as we have seen, are out there just to, they found this is an easy way. If you're a person with aggressive tendencies or hate someone, you're going to exact some kind of revenge on humanity, they'll give you a license to do it. And before, you didn't question the police integrity, but thank goodness the law has started to question police integrity. They may not do anything about it, but at least they'll question it.
I think something that for some reason the police resist greatly, that we need more desperately, is civilian oversight boards.
I agree.
Why they get so bad, so firmly resisted as if they're terrible things, I don't know. But because
they don't want to have to do less work, I think. Because every civilian oversight board, CRB, civilian review board I've ever seen, has asked the police to do less. Get paid the same, do less. And I don't know why, but police seem really to want to overwork. They don't want to take it easy. I don't know. I have no idea why.
That's what I talk about, those hidden agendas of overly aggressive personalities. What do you mean? I can't beat him up in handcuffs, you know?
Like, hey, we don't want you to enforce the laws on the books for this, and this. We want you to, we're going to decriminalize those. We want you to only enforce the laws on the books for that and that. And they're like, that means I get like 8 hours of, what am I supposed to do with those 8 hours? Play Pokemon Go, my friend. Like, chill, read a book, meet some neighbors, have a good time. Like, have some lemonade in the park. Maybe kick a ball to some kids playing soccer. Enjoy the fact that you're getting paid to do less. This is
exactly, redefine, what the police are doing. Just redefine their role. Because that what is going on now is absolutely ridiculous. And I think when we've seen that video of where the police in Washington actually parted the gates and let the protesters in. At some point during the rally, even before they gathered at the barricades, some point during the rally, someone should have radioed and said, "This may get out of hand, please send help." Somebody should have said it somewhere, or if they did, what was the response? That's what the conversation I keep hoping to hear. Not how they couldn't contain it, whatever. At some point, these are people who are supposed to have some kind of training,
To anticipate. You're supposed to be the expert in public safety, and you cannot anticipate. If I'm sitting there being able to anticipate, and I am no expert in no kind of public safety, I expect you to be worth your paycheck and be able to anticipate better than me. Gosh.
Exactly. That's what I kept going. I'm like, this went wrong when there were still speakers on the stage. This went wrong. The people, especially after a year like 2020, they knew something was about to happen. And was a call put out? Because I keep saying somebody must have called and said something. And who received that call? That's what I keep going. Who received that call, and what did they say? Or all of this could have been prevented if one person said, "Send help."
And now I'm going to back up and say, if there wasn't a call put out because there was an understood culture whereby that call would have been punished, we got a way bigger problem on our hands. I mean, it's one thing to be inept. It's entirely another thing to be purposely and structurally anti-effective.
Exactly. And that's what I keep going. That's why we can't count on the police for public safety. Public safety is no longer their realm. That is not what they do. They do something, but keeping the public safe is no longer their realm.
It could be. It could be.
And I think we'll get there. I have taken on the 200-year, view of America. I think we will get there. I think we'll get back there. I hope we will. I think we will. Taken in the short term, not going to happen this year, though.
No. And in fact, let me tell you what, the reason I'm here now in my daughter's house is she lives in Smithfield. And now when she leaves home, these cars have started running her off the road, open her window, and yell racial slurs. It happened the first time. She said it was a one-off coup. This is the third time it's happened. Who do you call? Who do you call? Who do you run to? African-American lady with her husband in their car, run off the road. The first time she was run into a ditch. She said the first time she really thought they tried to kill her. If her husband wasn't there, they would have tried to kill her and her daughter. The second time, it was just someone, when they come, the truck passes the car and hits brakes in front of you. You goes from 50 to 20 miles an hour in sec, just like that. And every time she tried to pass, they would not let her pass. They would speed up and whatever. And she was able to turn into a road, just make a right turn. And that's how she got away from them. And this time was broad daylight. This was in the evening. This was 1 in the afternoon. It happened again. She didn't feel secure enough to call the sheriff or the police or she didn't feel safe enough with them. Where do they go? And I said public safety is no longer a realm of the police department. It's no longer a realm. The public doesn't feel safe turning that way because she says now her name and address and all that will be public record because they'll have to write a report on the incident. She has their license tags and all that, but she's like, Mom, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? And that's what many people are starting to feel. Not just from the overall, I guess at the end of all the unrest of last year, the public confidence in the police system is really, really low. And the police system is not really doing anything to earn the public trust back. They're not doing anything to earn the public trust back. And then you have situations like this where a member of the public goes, where am I supposed to go? These people feel big and bad and bold enough to do this in broad daylight many times over. And I am so scared of dealing with the police because I do not want me, my loved one, my child, someone to be hurt inadvertently. Where do I go for that public safety?
And she could have called the police department and gotten someone who is dedicated to helping. But
yes, but not
no
after you saw.
No guarantee.
Yeah, not after you saw what happened in Washington. We know, as you said, that culture of when you're dealing with white supremacy or when you're dealing with that level of hate, let the hate win, let the hate take over, instead of enforcing the law. When you have the law versus white supremacy, law enforcement is more inclined to side with white supremacy than the law. And just from the incidences we've seen, it may not be entirely true, but just from the incidences we've seen, public trust, public opinion will lean more to the fact that law enforcement will go with white supremacy before they will go with what is the law of the land when it comes to a situation. That's what Washington the issue that happened in Washington kind of underscored. And that's the culture we have to end.
I've seen a few interviews with some of the police officers in the Capitol Police, the ones that were dragged downstairs and beaten with flagpoles and stuff. What I haven't seen from there, and I don't know that it's happened and I just missed it, but I haven't seen from there, is them talking about the internal environment that they live and work in the Capitol Police Department. And I haven't seen much of that from police officers in any police department who are standing behind the solid blue wall that if they testify, if they give interviews, if they talk about the bad things that can take place in their police department, they are going to be ostracized. They're going to be, or worse, ostracized is maybe the mild punishment that they'll get. They may be limiting their careers.
We still live in a society where people think it's rude to, quote unquote, air your dirty laundry. But there's a difference in between airing dirty laundry and having a reasonable approach to, the fact that in any workplace there are imperfections and they can't get better unless they're talked about. And openly acknowledging imperfections in a workplace is just, you're not saying you hate it. You're not saying it's bad or there's nothing redemptive about it. You're just saying hey,
and airing
it should have the same emotional weight as saying hey, I don't know who set the central thermostat, but it's really chilly in here, even in the summers. Maybe we need to change the thermostat, which is...
Yeah.
But police airing their dirty laundry equals us, and especially Elizabeth's people, being clubbed in public.
Yes, but it should be able to be aired.
Right.
Because that dirty laundry is that they need to change the thermostat. It's a fixable problem.
Exactly.
And it shouldn't be something kept secret, is what I'm saying.
I'm agreeing, and maybe you misunderstood what I said. I would say I would not make it so benign as airing our dirty laundry. Your dirty laundry is getting people beaten and killed. We need to air your dirty laundry.
And that's the thing is, I'm like, we smell the stink. Let's get to the laundry so we can get the stink out the building. The building stinks.
Yeah.
I have to say, so I saw a I know I've sort of hidden under the hidden minority label. I'm Jewish, so I'm not, of the WASP culture in America. And one of my Jewish spaces started to have a serious discussion about WASP culture and cultural appropriation. And in that space, they talked about, well, they have their own culture, right? And what is that culture look like? And one of the things that WASP culture has as one of its cultural bedrocks is the absolute desire to never acknowledge the elephant in the room. And I think that part of what we're seeing here is that culture and that cultural cornerstone taking over here. And in this, I really wish they would appropriate some from the other cultures that like to talk about the problems and get them fixed. Just, rather than appropriating hairstyles, maybe appropriate the ability to talk about the problems.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And they need a safe space to do it. They need a safe space to do it. Like with any other job assessment, anything, dealing with life and death situations, you need a space to talk about this is what works, this is what doesn't work. Can you imagine if general surgery never talked about what needs improving or we'd be still, holding people down and pouring whiskey down their mouth to anesthetize will not be, it has to be an ongoing conversation within that culture and society of, hey, this really isn't working, or that's not really doing it. But instead, it's a lot of the same mistakes from way back when being exacerbated. That's just completely out of control because nobody thought to say, hey, what if we didn't do that? Don't you think? What would be the outcome if they're like, no, this is what has been done, for 20, 50, 100 years before you got here, and that's why we're doing it,
I'll say, I guarantee you 100 white women would clutch their pearls and fall face forward over into their unseasoned chicken.
This is just to give you another real life example. Someone in Harnett County, one of the post offices, I think in Irwin, the drop boxes, went and stuck some racially derogatory stickers onto the mailbox. Now, the same way they had the freedom to go stick those stickers, I feel anyone who saw it had the freedom to pull it off. But instead of it just getting pulled off, we're now going into 6-party talks, calling the Charlotte Command Center, post office, whatever, writing to your elected official. I was like,
can I make this bigger? Can I generalize this? Because I've seen the show notes, and the show notes have the Nazi flag also in the show notes, and I feel that Nazi flag. I feel the same way about okay, there's a Nazi flag there, and yes, I'm supposed to be triggered, but I didn't inherit all the generational trauma I was supposed to inherit, so I'm not triggered. And my response was just, oh, wouldn't it be fun if a bird pooped on that flag such that you could no longer make out its imagery?
Oh my God.
Right. Just like you said, like anybody can stick the stickers, anybody can pull off the stickers. We don't need 6-party talks. We don't need letters to editors. Just have a bird have a massive diarrhea attack that therefore turns that flag into some sort of reverse Japanese flag, because the Japanese flag is a white background with a red circle.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
and then we're all fine. Everything's fine.
That's like, just take it off. You know,
because the people who do this in order to have a response. They are validated by a big response.
Exactly.
So don't feed the trolls.
Take it off, and we'll never know it happened.
Yeah.
And that would be you know, they're like, nobody said anything about it. You know, I don't ever want to know who did that. I don't want to know their name. I don't want to know the reasoning behind it. I just want to go.
I don't care.
Pull it off.
I want them to feel as inconsequential as they ought to be.
Exactly. I don't want to call the Postmaster General. I don't want to do any of that. I just want it not to be there. And guess what? I just might make it not be there. You know?
That's what happened with that one.
You know, and I can only talk to my own community, but like part of it is those people who are having an outsized response need to acknowledge that they're having an outsized response. And that may not be their fault that they've got that trauma, but it is their responsibility. And they need to find a way to deal with it that doesn't feed the trolls.
Exactly. You know, and there should be no space. I said there should be no space for hate in our lives. No space. There should be no space for that at all. And I think doing all that other stuff is giving it space. If someone tries to interject that in your life, you know that will not, just no. We're not talking about, we're not saying no. We're not explaining to you why it's bad anymore. Just no, we're not going to have it. And
like a toddler. You tried, but no. Moving on, it's snack time. Like
exactly, and that's what law enforcement needs within their camaraderie, within their fraternal selves, or camaraderie, whatever, within their ranks, is when they see something going on, instead of waiting for the review, incident report, whatever. You see your colleague doing something wrong. The answer is no. We're not doing that. Don't explain. I don't know that. No, just no. We're not going. No, not today. And I'm very sure whoever is the executor of those evil actions, at some point it's not going to be worth it to them because nobody's paying attention. They're stopped in their tracks. If you stop them in their tracks, they'll have to find another avenue to be. They'll have to find somewhere else to go.
On that Nazi flag thing, I don't think it reached the level of any government action. But
no, because you know what? Somebody posted it somewhere, and somebody may have mentioned about bird poop, and then there were other people who brainstormed some other things, and magically it got taken care of within like an hour.
Well, it was covered up by, first of all, it was blacked out, and then somebody put a Confederate flag on top, and then somebody put an American flag on top of that. I don't know if that's the end of the story of that flag or not. But that flag was on private property. Elizabeth, is it okay to tear it down?
On your private property, do whatever you want on your private property. Hey, you own the deed. You want to desecrate your land? Desecrate. That is on you, right, as long as you're not poisoning the water.
So the swastika,
poisoning our eyesight.
So the swastika was on private property.
It was,
and I think it might not have gotten any attention except for a person who rented a trailer on that property, stuck a sign above it or below it that said, "That's not my sign." And
yes,
they were afraid that they were going to be associated with that sign, and so they wanted to make sure
if they were renting
people
the property, they had possession of that property while they rented it. If their rent is up to date and all, they had possession. So they could take it. They could have taken it down.
They were not the exclusive renters of the property. The owner of the property used some of the property. The renter had a trailer on it. So yeah, I would say that if they were renting the whole thing, they would have control over that. But they weren't. So
yeah. And I saw them online asking for help. They were saying, the person who owns the property did this. We live here. We're very concerned that we're going to be tarred and feathered because they did that, and that the property line in between what I have control of and what they have control of is like right here. Anybody have any ideas? And this is where I made my bird poop suggestion.
And that's the thing. That's the thing. A lot of this stuff because I know in Harnett County, I've driven by those flags all the time. In fact, before, the pre-COVID world, they used to have the sales right down in the middle of the town of Coates where they hang all these flags up and, they come in and, you're given a brown bag. Instead of having liquor bottle, you're having all these Confederate, Nazi flags stuffed into there. They do that all the time. There are properties who are draped in all these horrible flags on their private property. That is, unfortunately, the reality we live in. That's the reality we live in. They want to do that on their private property. That's their business. Just don't come and try and impose that thought out here. Don't do it, because I hope they have seen that this world is starting to say, no, we're just not having it. No.
But there is a criticism.
I will straight up shun somebody who has hateful imagery. I'm not gonna fight them. I'm not gonna respond to them. But I'm going to shun them, and they miss out on the wonder of living in a society where I acknowledge that they are living, breathing human beings.
Exactly.
And that's the natural consequences. That they want a value signal. That's the consequences of their value signal. They're limited to all 6 of the fellow Nazis who live in the area, and none of the rest of us with sense.
Yeah, and if they could see how boring life is in that world they're constraining themselves to, compared to how fun and exciting it is when we all get together and we all discuss and our opinions differ and, we do our own thing, democracy rules. If they could see how, we need to make life in that hate circle very, very, very boring. Very, 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 very boring. Very dull for them. No press, no attention, nothing.
I've known enough reformed former neo-Nazis who said that boring was what got them out of it. They realized, maybe they stayed in for 6 years, and like in the 6th year, they were hearing the same rhetoric again, and it finally occurred to them that this is they're on an endless cycle, and there's nothing going to change here, and they started to crave something else, and so they gave it up. And they were like,
this is, having seething in hate takes work. It
met a need that they had when they were younger. Like, they needed to feel seen and heard and find a community, and they found a community. And then, like, later on, they no longer needed that quite so desperately, so they could be more picky about what community they wanted to find.
And that's what I'm like. Let's just make it as interesting as possible. Make life for them, no extra. In fact, the only attention they get is jail. Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of jail and lots of prison time. Let them get that quickly and swiftly. And then on top of that, when they do go to jail, their pictures are never printed. So nobody will ever know their personal suffering. They will stay with it. They'll never be anyone's martyr. That's what I think would cure it. Make life as boring and as unseen and as, just... That's not what we want to do, because nobody will know it but me and my family. I will not be on anybody's Instagram, Twitter feed. I will not be on your news channel show thing. No, you will not. You will not be any of that. That is not what we're going to feed into. And that's what I want to, I hope that we get to. That, number one, when we see it, it stops immediately. We don't wait for 6-party talks. And then we don't want to give them the attention. We don't want to know. I don't want to know who you are. I don't know. No, I don't want to know where you are. I don't want to know anything about you. I want you just to stay in your hateful little world all by yourself in the dark. Talking about the dark. Now, I'm about to do some of the rhetoric I do with my Caucasian husband. I say, honey, the sun is setting. You won't be able to see me in a few minutes. Let me turn the light on, because that's what I'm about to do. I'm about to turn the lights on. There's just something.
It's starting to get dark down there.
Oh, yeah. Very soon, all you'll be seeing is eyes and teeth.
Eyes and teeth.
So, give me 1 second. Let me turn my lights on.
So I'm hearing what you're saying about making it boring and them where are the pictures I want here? I'm not sure. And not well, where they're all they're hearing is the same drum beat and they get bored with it. But what I'm thinking of when you say that is listening to Rush Limbaugh, listening to my very dear friend John Hannity on Fox News. That's all they do. They say the same things over and over again on every show, and their audience just continues to eat it up.
I question their audience continuing. I bet you they have a very good churn in audience. I don't think
they've both been at it for decades.
Oh, they may have been, but you, the audience member, may not. You may stick around for a year and then go off. I think they have a churn in audience, is what I'm saying. I don't think their audience is with them for decades.
I can't say one way or the other, although their audience stays big.
Beloved and sainted father used to listen to Rush Limbaugh, and he got about a year and a half of Rush Limbaugh before he was done. He was like, the man just repeats his talking points. This is no longer entertaining.
Yeah,
when
you argue with a conservative, with a Limbaugh or a Hannity audience member who's been there for a long time, when you argue with one, they can do a good job of their argument because they have had the same talking points drilled into their head day after day after day for years.
But they haven't had. Well, yes and no. They can do if you say your lines properly, they can do a good job having an argument with you. But if you go off Hannity or Limbaugh's script, they got nothing. They weren't prepared for that side derailment.
They'll just drag it back. No. Hello, Alan.
They try, and you go, but and this is like boardroom soft skills, right? Where you go, but you didn't answer my question. We can get to that on the agenda later, but right now the topic on the table is this. What is your response to this topic on the table? You cannot let them control the track. It's called switch tracking. When somebody doesn't want to talk about what you want to talk about, they want to derail it. Derail, switch track. It's trains.
We need to teach some TV anchors that skill.
I believe the TV anchors allow it to happen because they think that brings in content. I hope the TV anchors are educated enough in how natural discourse works and how to keep on topic if it comes to it. But I will say, this is one of the things that I love about Terry Gross as an interviewer. Terry Gross is an NPR personality. Homegirl does not allow switch track for nothing. She has the most polite and beautiful ways of shutting that down and bringing them back to the topic.
Well, she's been called the best interviewer in media.
Absolutely. She's a rock star. And, when I first heard her do that, I had just an expertise crush. I was like, I don't even like the topic she's talking about, but I love what she just did.
Oh yeah. Alan's joined us.
Yeah, hi. I'd like to join that discussion with Rush Limbaugh because he's a favorite of mine to attack. One, he's not a competent person when it comes to debates. He was told by Fox twice not to debate Clinton. He had no chance and looked ridiculous. The other thing about it, I never hear about Rush Limbaugh, and you should actually be talking about, is responsible indirectly for the outbreak of opioids because he avoided federal prison by changing the laws in Florida so they did not keep track or did not make mandatory to keep track of narcotics. Because of him, because he was addicted, they didn't want him to go back to federal prison or go to jail on his conviction. So they changed the laws for keeping track of drugs, particularly opioids, because they didn't want Rush Limbaugh, who was still an addict, to go to prison. And what it did was they changed the laws to be voluntary reporting or not reporting at all. So certain states dropped this, including North Carolina. And what happened was it made it so that you could not stop doctor shopping and you could not get the evidence needed to put people away for opioids.
But I'm glad they changed that with the Stop Act.
We did the Stop Act here to change what conservatives did to protect Rush Limbaugh in Florida. They made retroactive to all sorts of southern states. And we had to undo that state by state in order to help stop the opioid epidemic. It helped here saving lives and open the door that we can go after doctors who are selling drugs to get people addicted and dentists. Before they couldn't do that, they weren't allowed the records and they weren't allowed to keep track of it in enough time for them to do something. So we changed it with David Lewis from being voluntary to being mandatory, and we cut down the time to, I think, 3 days to 7 days we were discussing.
So what was voluntary?
Voluntary to report the actual number of people.
The actual number of narcotics you're taking.
Narcotics you're taking, and number of people that are taking narcotics. And if you have a 30, 40-day wait period, you're not able to prosecute it because it keeps changing. It's not active enough for it to be good in court. You have to cut it down to 7 to 3 days. And the STOP Act was done really to counteract what was done in Florida by covering up the records so that you could not go after people for taking opioids or doctor shopping.
Yeah.
So it ended that. And we did it here. It was done in New York. We tried doing it. And we did it in Pennsylvania. And the reason for this is we made the STOP Act there because it gave us the ability to actually crack down on people who are trying to get people addicted. And we did this with North Carolina harm reduction. And we got the STOP Act passed with David.
Well, that's just, what we've been talking about. Just, put an end to it. That's what we need for this situation to stop. Let's just put an end to it. Don't give them space. Don't give them oxygen. Give a fire, a spark oxygen, it become a fire very quick.
The thing that annoys me the most is that this lady down there is responsible indirectly, in my opinion, for over 10,000 deaths over all those years that he was making the laws change to protect people like him. Privilege.
Yeah, I can understand that. There's a lot of detail in what you've been talking about that I'm unaware of and not really absorbing very well. So, but it sounds like a good, a topic for like pretty much a whole show at some point. Guess what, Elizabeth? You'll be able to do that.
Yeah. Putting it on the list.
Yeah.
But definitely, yeah, so.
Alan, are you good with Elizabeth doing a show?
I'm sure we are. We always want to get the information out.
All right. Just want to make sure that everything's cool within the family then.
I sleep with one eye open, one of the two.
I got about 12 minutes left before I got to bail. Now, I could switch my camera off and leave all this on and you guys could talk. There would be nobody to turn it off. That would be the problem.
Oh, no. I guess because we could, we'll wind it down just fine,
Yeah, a time limit makes the content more precious.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you guys want to bring up, either from the show doc or something else?
Jen goes to look at the show doc.
Got the literacy test, which is not going to get eliminated. There's a literacy test in the North Carolina Constitution for voting. It's still there. And somebody thinks it's a good idea to eliminate it now because that would be a good kumbaya. Everyone get together and we can pass this thing as one of the few bipartisan things. And I think he's fooling himself. I think the literacy test would fail again. Removing it would fail again.
So I learned about this in civics when I was back in 10th grade. That you're not allowed to have such literacy tests and things because it's a barrier to voting. However, that particular line in the Constitution has been interpreted, and I'll read it out loud. Article 6, Section 4, every person presenting himself for registration shall be able to read and write any section of the Constitution in the English language. That section has not just been interpreted to be a literacy test for those who are registering to vote, but it's been interpreted as requiring laws of North Carolina, not just our Constitution, to be written in plain English such that the layman can understand the law rather than in legalese. And I think the second interpretation, the part where you put it in plain English and avoid legalese so that people know what the law says and what the law means and can follow along with the lawmaking process if they so choose, is good, and I would like to keep that. So please don't toss all the baby out with the bathwater.
Well, I'm saying a little differently than that. I'm saying that when you become a citizen, you should be trained and instructed, be able to reach that goal in your use of the English language. And I think that's part of the becoming a citizen. And I think that has to be the requirement that you go by, not a state law.
So you think literacy in English should be a requirement for citizenship?
If it is required for citizenship, which I think it is when you come to this country and become a citizen of this country, that is the criteria that was picked to use to see if you have the right to vote, because you're a citizen. You should have a right to vote. Point is, the states have absolutely no say in this matter because it is part of the immigration of bringing people into this country. The standard was already picked by the federal government, and it was that you would become a citizen. Once you're a citizen, you have the right to vote. And I believe that is the literary test that they're talking about when it comes to foreign people coming in this country to vote or being made naturalized citizens. And I believe that that's the standard that should be accepted, and I don't think we should be making state standards or county standards or whatever it's going to turn into when the alternate right takes over and tries to push the other point.
I wasn't sure about that requirement for English, so I'm looking it up here.
You do have to pass an exam in order to become a naturalized U.S. citizen. It's an exam, and it's an exam that a good number of us natural-born citizens cannot pass.
Appears to be something called the SELT test, the Secure English Language Test, at level B1 in speaking and listening.
I would like to add, we're not the only country that has something like this. Japan has the JLPT, the Japanese Language Proficiency Test. I mean, and that isn't even for citizenship. That's just for residency. So, it appears that being functional in a country in their main language is something that most countries think is a baseline requirement. But I think it's one that naturally has its own consequences. I mean, if you're not functional in English, you're going to have a bad time in this country regardless. Unless you stay in a very, very small enclave of fellow expatriates from wherever you've come. That said, I really do like, and I will reiterate, I really do like the fact, because I do read proposed bills, I really like the fact that they're written in a level of English that I didn't have to go to law school to interpret, and I want that to stay. Because it helps me watch what my legislators are up to, and to be able to give feedback. As a voter, I am allowed to do. Now I am also empowered to do it.
I hadn't thought of that as a consequence of that language. Every person presenting himself for registration shall be able to read and write any section of the Constitution, that's North Carolina Constitution, in the English language. It's a backdoor. Very much a backdoor to say, and therefore the Constitution must be written accessible, so that any person can read and write.
And that's how it's being used presently. And I don't want, sure, change the language in the Constitution, but please keep that particular protection in, somehow put it in a new way. I don't care. But I like the fact that that it is currently being interpreted as, hey, as government, we have a responsibility to make this accessible to our citizens.
Yeah. I guess I disagree because, like I said, the federal law comes first. The federal law made it that you're a citizen with these requirements, and that does not include, as far as I know, the reading of the Constitution or part of the Constitution. The state law should be circumstanted by the federal law, and we should not allow it to be legal and have it as a voidable law. It should not be enforceable. It should go to Supreme Court, if necessary, to prevent it from ever being acted.
Well, I think that it has long been rendered obsolete, rendered null by court decisions. It's just that the language has never been removed from the Constitution. And the article I was reading never mentioned the backdoor thing about how to write the language of laws in the state constitution. We're looking at this as literacy tests left over from Jim Crow.
Yes.
And from the idea that having a literacy test was one way of keeping black people from being able to vote. And a couple of shows ago, we discussed the term grandfather clause as being something that could keep the illiterate white people back in the latter part of the 1800s, allow them to still vote, and while keeping black people from voting, who were.
I mean, it has racist origins, but somebody has recently, and by recently I mean within the past decade, wielded it for good.
Interesting.
And I'm kind of okay with it being wielded for good.
Well, it's having no effect in terms of these days requiring literacy at the polls. We don't have a test to be able to go vote.
I guess one of the problems you're having with immigration now, attacks on minorities, is the fact that they're getting to be more populous, and therefore they're not the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant type of religion or English speaking. And therefore, as they go on, why should a English speaking language be dominant in a society that will soon be other languages than English? And the point is, our future is going to be different demographically, and therefore is the law mute at some point. Why is there only one language that's taught in the United States? Other countries, in fact, almost all other countries have multiple languages being spoken. And,
right.
I mean, the U.S. doesn't have one language either. Like, we don't have one official language here. The census is printed in, don't quote me on this, 10 or 13 different languages, because by law, we are not allowed to print it just in English because English is not the official language of the United States.
Thank God.
We have a lot of them. But I believe English was chosen as the language of law just because with our accreditation in law schools and so on and so forth, they had to pick some sort of standard. And yes, it's arbitrary, but that's what they picked. And so here we are.
Totally
I kind of remember that law was actually in Latin.
Yes, and in Louisiana, it's
because it was more accurate to speak.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it
in
arbitrary.
Louisiana, it's in a whole other language altogether. But here we are.
I wouldn't call it arbitrary because it's clearly the most commonly spoken language by head and shoulders. But the lack of respect for other languages is disappointing. And yeah, once again, just do a little bit of traveling around the world and you start realizing that almost everybody speaks many languages except here. And
I'd say I can speak for science. So I have degrees in science. I did work in science. In science, the scientific community had a consensus that the two languages of science would be German and English. Again, somewhat arbitrarily picked, not without, good arguments for it, but also it's arbitrary because they could have just as soon picked Spanish or French and people would have learned it to participate. But they picked these and they went, now we can communicate, and easier communication leads to better outcomes overall. So we picked it. We don't have to debate this anymore. Go forth in science and share.
Yeah, I'm sure that science has its difficulties with language. The other day, I was answering some questions on a forum for people who run this software system that runs this show, the Wirecast system. And the person asking the question was clearly English as a barely second language, and maybe it was Google Translate. And the question made no sense. And I answered what I thought the question was going after, and a couple more back and forths, and we got to what the real issue was and what the real answer was. And I acknowledged right up front, I think one of the problems with answering your question is, as I read it in English, it's just very hard to understand. So science probably has that like
the
crazy.
The French actually made a mistake in their technology years ago, decades ago, not that many decades, about 2 or 3 decades ago. Everything that was given to them for their science had to be reinterpreted into French first. And it didn't have the computerization we have now. And the problem was they were always behind in their science because of that and had extra expenses. And by the time they got in there, they were weeks, if not months, behind everyone else because of that interpretation being done.
Yep.
So they stopped doing that because it's shooting them in the foot.
Yep. Well, my old clock on the console tells me that I got to go down and eat food so I can get to my football game with my friend who needs company. This is the end of the show as we know it. I believe that's the title here. End of the pod as we know it. Episode 131, January 24th, 2021. Let's see. I get to be Gary Pierce, pod fader. Pod fade is a concept in the podcasting business where mostly you just stop making shows. You make a show and then you don't make any more shows. At the end of that show, you never said you were done. You just never get around to making another one, and maybe you get back to it in a few years. That's a pod fade. This isn't a pod fade. This is going to be a handoff. The last show that I did, the ham radio show, I also did a handoff. The person I handed it off to was not able to keep up with my level of the number of shows that I produced, the frequency. He did a pretty good job with the technology, but it's been like 6 months since he did a show, and then he just did another one. So he was almost on the verge of pod fade, and then he came back. I am proud to be able to hand this program off to Elizabeth, who is not in the frame right now, but Alan Longman, you can sit in for her, to an African-American woman, an originally African woman. Does she refer to herself now as African-American, or does she like to?
No, she doesn't. There's a complete different culture. They're almost opposites in some ways, and she does not conform to the African-American tradition. She did not understand slavery. She had to learn that once she came to this country, and she knows her roots and are proud of them. And the Americans here, African Americans, have a problem finding their roots, who their culture was, and who they are.
Yeah. And
that's because of just the way our schooling has and our culture has wiped out the remnants of what they should know, who they are.
So she lives in the same level of discrimination that all black people live in, but without feeling the history of slavery.
She does not understand the concept.
Doesn't know why.
That you have to know your place.
Yeah.
Africans don't know their place. If they're going to be assaulted, they will assault back. They will sit there and speak out. They will fight to every last bit, and she's every part of that. So that's the part. When people meet her, they think because she's dark, she's going to be rolling over, giving up, or conforming, and that's not the case. Thank God.
Yeah, an interesting perspective.
More done that way.
And although she is from Central Africa, I'm going to say she's from Wakanda.
She's Kenyan.
Okay, I'm not sure that you would admit that to me.
Yeah.
So, but I think the location of Wakanda is kind of right at the edge of Kenya. Okay. Yeah. Okay, but Kenya, that's pretty cool. A very unique perspective, and it's great to be able to hand off the program to someone who has that background. And Jen, I want to thank you very much for having participated in the program. If you make a little bit of noise, I can get you in the full screen. There you go. Otherwise, they're going to be left on the last person to speak. I want to thank you very much for your participation for almost the past year. It is so much nicer.
The past pandemic.
Yep. I mean, I recruited you as someone who could report on your neighborhood about the pandemic, which is.
And I still can. Still
got a ways to go. And it's so much nicer having a co-host to bounce things off of and to have a dialogue as anyone can tell, I can do a monologue show. I can do that, but I'd rather not. And you brought an awful lot to it. And, background and ability to communicate ideas and intelligence, and I just want to thank you for stepping in and sticking with it, because as you can tell, other people come and go, and it is very difficult to find someone who can hang in there. And you've been that hair in a biscuit.
Yep, or as I like to say, I'm a party. My hair is my confetti.
Yep. So thank you very much. And I'll put myself back here on the on the big screen if I can figure out how. And thank the audience for having stuck around. It's never been as big as I would like to have. But it's been a fun show to do, and I'm not sure whether I'm going to do something else or do something different once I end up down in South Carolina, basically suburban Charlotte. But I'll have all this hardware. I've been having a very difficult time leeching the idea of doing something out of my body, even if there's not a lot of people watching it. So I don't know. We will see. And then for the last time for me here on the Triangle Talk Show, Alan, do you know how to help out with the end of the show? You'll be able to figure it out. On the 3-word ending, you'll be able to figure out the 3rd word. And for the last time for me on this show, over.
And.
Out.
Bye, everybody.
Put into the show.
Thank you.